The refrigerator light was still on when I got home. There was a single glass of water on the counter, half full, no condensation. The air in the house felt hollow, like something had escaped. I didn't notice the silence at first. I noticed the shoes. 3 pairs. Gone. The hiking boots I bought her last spring, the beat-up white sneakers she always said she hated but wore anyway, and the red heels she swore she'd never wear again after that night at the wedding, all missing. But the sandals were still there. She always said, if I'm running, it won't be in sandals. The closet was ajar. Drawers half empty. Toothbrush gone. She didn't take the ring. I didn't move. Not for a long time. I just stood there and listened. To what? I'm not even sure. Maybe the house grieving. Maybe myself. At exactly 7:43 p.m., my phone buzzed once. A single message. No name. Just a number I hadn't memorized. I didn't know how else to go. Please don't hate me. Hate wasn't the word. Hate was too alive, too loud. This was quieter. Colder. This was a kind of betrayal that didn't scream. It lingered. She didn't leave during a fight. Didn't slam a door. Didn't accuse or confess, or even cry. She left between moments. Between Thursday and Friday. She disappeared while I was living an ordinary day, thinking I still had a wife. And here's the cruelest part. I gave her an exit months ago. An open door. A clean slate. A conversation where I said, if you ever feel like I'm not what you want anymore, just say it. You don't have to stay. She shook her head then. Told me I was being dramatic. She kissed my forehead and said, you overthink everything. Maybe I do. But not this time. This time, I knew exactly what she'd done. She thought I'd chase her. She thought I'd fall apart. She thought she could walk out and then write the rules when she came back. But here's the thing. I'm not chasing. And she's not the one who vanished. She just doesn't know it yet. I didn't touch anything that first night. Not the suitcase she didn't take. Not the half glass of water. Not even the lights. I slept on the couch without a blanket, just staring at the ceiling, waiting for the quiet to stop screaming. It didn't. But the next morning, I started noticing details. Tiny details, the kind that don't matter unless someone's gone. First, the bathroom shelf. Her skincare routine used to look like a miniature pharmacy, rows of pastel-colored bottles I never dared move. All gone. Even the one I bought her for Christmas, the stupidly expensive serum she rolled her eyes at but used every night. That one stung. But it wasn't until I walked past the living room window that I knew for sure this wasn't spontaneous. The jade plant was dead. Let me explain. B, my wife, or whatever she is now, watered that plant religiously. Every Sunday morning. Even when we were fighting. Even when she had the flu. I once joked she'd sooner bury me than forget that plant. It hadn't been watered in at least 2 weeks. 2 weeks. That's when I understood she'd been planning this. Slowly. Quietly. Strategically. She'd been living with me while preparing to vanish. I pulled out my phone, opened her contact, and hovered over the call button. But then I saw something. The last outgoing call she made. Not to me. Not to her sister. Not even her mom. A number I didn't recognize, called 4 times in 3 days, including the night before she disappeared. No name, just numbers. I copied it, Googled it. Nothing. I wasn't surprised. She was careful. Always had been. But suddenly I started seeing the care in everything. Not the loving kind, the premeditated kind. The deleted browser history. The cleared call log. The empty trash bin on the laptop. She hadn't left in a panic. She left like someone sneaking out the back door with both middle fingers raised and a smile on her face. But she made one mistake. She left behind an old hard drive, tucked under the bed in that stupid wooden box where we kept meaningless things. Old receipts, birthday cards, the receipt from our first mattress. The hard drive was there. I remembered it from years ago, when we were both broke and used it to store movies and photos because cloud storage was too expensive. I didn't expect much, but I plugged it in anyway. There weren't many folders. One of them was named Echo. That was the name of the art project she started last fall. The one she claimed was about shadows and sound and emotional geometry. I never understood what that meant, but I supported it. Inside that folder were hundreds of voice memos. Some short, some long, some with names, some just timestamps. I clicked a random one labeled Echo_07-13-22. And there it was, her voice. I don't feel guilty when I'm with him. Isn't that insane? I should, but I don't. When I kiss him, I feel like I exist again. I sat back in my chair. I didn't press pause. I didn't skip. I let it play. Her voice, soft, intimate, like she was whispering into someone else's skin. He listens to me. Nolan doesn't. Not really. He hears me, sure, but he doesn't listen. He's always fixing, always analyzing. I just want someone to feel me. God, why is that so hard? That one hurt. Not because she was wrong, but because she never told me. Not once. She chose someone else instead. Someone who listened. Or pretended to. Someone whose name I didn't know, whose face I couldn't see, but who clearly knew everything about me. I clicked another file. Echo_08-01-22. This one was longer. I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to leave. But I need to make sure it lands. I want him to feel it. Not just, oh, my wife left. I wanted to etch into him. He's been so numb lately. I want to wake him up. This isn't cruelty. It's clarity. I laughed. Out loud. Alone in the dim glow of my desk lamp. Cruelty? No. She didn't believe in cruelty. She believed in poetry. In orchestrated endings. In building a disappearing act so elegant, I'd have no choice but to admire the performance. But here's where she miscalculated. I wasn't asleep. I wasn't numb. I was just patient. Trusting. Stupid enough to think that loving someone meant waiting for them to come back when they wandered. But now I saw what she wanted. She didn't want space. She wanted power. And I wasn't going to give her that. So I crafted my response. Not a message. Not a call. Something better. I deleted my social media. Every account. I pulled my name off every platform we shared. Removed myself from Spotify family, from Netflix history, from our shared calendar. I erased every trace of myself from the digital world we built together. If she wanted a clean break, I'd give her one so clean it would feel surgical. I became a ghost in my own life. And just like that, the balance of control shifted. She thought she left me behind, but she didn't realize I was already 2 steps ahead. And the best part? She still hasn't figured out what I know. Not yet. It was a Tuesday afternoon when she finally noticed I'd disappeared. I know because she tried calling me, twice. The first time, I let it ring. The second time, I watched the screen until her name faded away. No voicemail. Just like last time. I could practically feel her irritation bleeding through the phone. I deleted the call logs. That night, she emailed me. Subject line blank. Just 2 words in the body. Are you okay? I didn't answer. And that's when it started, the unraveling. B was never good with silence. She always had to fill it. With humming. With questions. With those half-conversations she'd start while walking out of the room. She believed in words the way people believe in air, necessary, automatic. She never imagined I'd weaponize the absence of them. 2 days passed. Then another message. Longer this time. I know I don't deserve anything from you right now. I just need to know you're all right. Please. I didn't respond, but I read it 3 times. It's strange. You think when someone breaks your heart, all you'll feel is rage or devastation. But I felt something else. Control. Quiet. Still. Heavy in my chest like a stone. For the first time in months, I got to choose the story. I didn't tell anyone she'd left. Not my brother. Not my coworkers. Not even Sam, my oldest friend who used to know everything about our relationship. I started playing the long game. I wanted to see how long it would take before she cracked. I wasn't chasing closure. I was waiting for her to realize she didn't have any. The real shift came the following weekend. I was outside mowing the lawn, something she used to joke I did aggressively, like I was trying to punish the grass, when her mother pulled into the driveway. I didn't expect that. I hadn't seen Joy since Christmas. She stepped out of her car with this hesitant half-smile, like she didn't know whether to hug me or apologize. Nolan, she said, walking up the path slowly, I just came to check on things. I shut off the mower and looked at her. I could tell she didn't know. He hadn't told her mother anything. Not about leaving. Not about the man. Not about the voice memos or the 2 months of orchestrated betrayal. She didn't tell you? I asked, wiping sweat off my neck with my sleeve. Joyce looked genuinely confused. Tell me what? I invited her inside. The thing is, I didn't even have to say much. One look at the half-empty closet, the ring in the dish by the sink, and her mouth tightened. Oh, she whispered. She finally did it. Those words. Finally did it. I just nodded, pretending to be more heartbroken than I actually was. I even added a fake tremble in my voice when I said, I thought we were okay. I don't know what I did wrong. Joy sat down on the edge of the couch like the truth had just knocked the wind out of her. She's been restless for a while, she said slowly. But I thought it was just a phase. She talked about needing space, needing something new. I didn't think she'd actually leave. Not like this. She left a post-it, I said. No conversation. No goodbye. That part was real. Joyce shook her head and sighed. She's always been like that. Afraid of confrontation. But this is cruel. I wanted to tell her everything. About the hotel receipts I found in our joint bank account. The file on the hard drive where B recorded what she called her transition arc. About the line where she said, he'll hate himself for not seeing it sooner. That's part of it. But I didn't. Because it wasn't time yet. Instead, I let Joyce leave thinking her daughter had just cracked under pressure. That poor Nolan had been abandoned by a woman who lost her sense of self. I knew she'd call B later. Probably in tears. Probably asking why. And B wouldn't have a good answer. Because the truth was uglier than anything she could admit to her own mother. By the following week, she was the one doing the chasing. I got another email. Then a message from an unknown number, probably a burner phone. Then a letter. Yes, a real letter, mailed to the house in her handwriting. It started with, "You don't have to forgive me. I just need to hear your voice." And that's when I realized something important. She didn't regret leaving. She regretted that I wasn't broken by it. That was the wound she hadn't expected to bleed. But I wasn't done yet. I wasn't going to throw a tantrum or smash windows or post long sob stories on Facebook. That's what she expected. That's what she needed to justify what she did. She wanted a dramatic Nolan. A hysterical Nolan. A Nolan she could point to and say, "See, this is why I left." But instead, I was giving her something else entirely. The version of me that didn't fight. The version that just vanished. Because when someone plans your destruction with careful, surgical cruelty, the worst thing you can do is survive without a scratch. And I wasn't just surviving. I was becoming a mirror she couldn't look into. It was a Wednesday, drizzling just enough to ruin your mood, but not enough to justify an umbrella. I wasn't even supposed to be at the store. I'd ordered groceries for delivery like I always did now, a habit I formed mostly to avoid people asking about her. But they messed up the order and forgot half the things. So I went. Hoodie up, headphones in, don't make eye contact energy in full effect. I hadn't seen her in 47 days. Not since the night I came home to the missing shoes and the glass of water still sweating on the counter. Not since the post-it. I wasn't prepared. Not even close. But there she was, standing in front of a display of organic peaches like she was trying to decide which one would tell her the future. She hadn't changed much. Hair up in a messy knot. That same overlarge flannel she used to steal from my side of the closet. But something in her face looked hollowed out. Less confident. Her jaw clenched the way it used to when she forgot to take her anxiety meds. For a second, I thought about ducking down the bread aisle. Pretending I never saw her. Giving her the satisfaction of thinking she still haunted me. But something in me, something petty, maybe even cruel, refused to move. So I walked up behind her, stopped maybe 3 feet away, and said nothing. I didn't tap her, didn't clear my throat, just stood there. She turned, and when our eyes met, her expression split into something I can't even describe. Shock, guilt, fear, and underneath all that, disappointment. Not at me, at herself. Like her fantasy version of this moment had just been shattered. She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off with a polite, quiet, "Excuse me." And I reached past her to grab a peach. Our hands didn't touch. She blinked, staggered for a second, then said my name like it was foreign. "Nolan." I looked at her, really looked at her, and smiled. Just a little. Just enough. "B," I replied. Like I was greeting an acquaintance I barely remembered from high school. The silence between us was dense. Like fog with weight. People moved around us. A kid dropped a yogurt. Somewhere a barcode scanner beeped. But we stood still. "I've been trying to reach you," she finally said. Her voice cracked. She tried to cover it with a cough. "You haven't answered anything." "I know," I said simply. Not cold. Not angry. Just honest. She shifted her weight, looking down at the fruit she hadn't picked. "I didn't expect to run into you like this." "I know," I said again. And maybe that's what got to her. The calm. The lack of chaos. She wasn't meeting the version of me she had scripted in her head. The bitter ex. The man she left in shambles. Instead, she was staring at someone who had built a version of peace out of her absence. She reached into her bag, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a small white envelope. She extended it toward me, her hand shaking just a little. I wrote this weeks ago, she said. Didn't know where to send it. I didn't take it. Instead, I asked, did he come with you today, or is this just your solo grocery run? Her face turned to ash. What? I gave her that same small smile. You know, the guy who made you feel like you existed again. She swallowed hard. You listened to the recordings. I found the hard drive, I replied. You didn't hide it very well. Her arm lowered. The envelope hung at her side like dead weight. I didn't mean for any of this to happen the way it did, she whispered. I thought that I'd fall apart. I tilted my head. That I'd beg you to come back? That I'd make it easy for you to feel like the hero of your own story? No, she said, but her voice was a lie wrapped in regret. You choreographed your exit like a stage play, I said. But you forgot one thing. The audience doesn't always clap. BEA's eyes welled. She bit her lip the way she used to when she was cornered in a lie. I just wanted to feel something again. I nodded slowly. And now that you do, you're trying to rewind the tape. She didn't answer, just stood there, holding that stupid envelope like it was supposed to fix anything. I wondered if it was a confession, or an apology, or one of those dramatic, poetic letters she always wrote when she wanted to feel tragic and noble. I still didn't take it. Instead, I leaned in just enough for only her to hear. I'm not angry, B. I'm just not yours anymore. And you can't stand that. Then I turned and walked away. Calm. Measured. I didn't look back. I don't know if she cried. I don't know if she stood there for one more second or 20 more minutes. I don't know if she threw the envelope away or read it herself just to feel like it meant something. But I do know this. That was the last time she tried to contact me. And the first time I finally felt real again. I didn't want to open the envelope. Not because I feared what was inside, but because I had made peace with silence. That envelope wasn't a cry for redemption. It was a trap, a carefully folded attempt to pull me back into her emotional orbit. And I wasn't going to orbit anything that burned me that cleanly. So I didn't open it, at first. I left it on the passenger seat of my car for 3 days. Drove to work with it there. Parked in front of my own house while the engine idled and just stared at it. It sat there, white and unassuming, like a paper ghost waiting to haunt me the moment I let it speak. But on the third night, something strange happened. I woke up at 3:11 a.m., wide awake, heart pounding. I'd had a dream, or maybe a memory. I'm not even sure which. In it, he was laughing at something. Something small. I think it was when she made up a song about our dripping kitchen faucet. That stupid, improvised little jingle that used to make me groan and smile at the same time. It played in my head, soft and ghost-like. That's what made me finally crack. I got out of bed, grabbed the envelope from my car, sat down at the kitchen table, and opened it. The first thing I noticed was that it wasn't just a letter. It was two things. One handwritten note in her familiar script, and behind it, a photo. I'll get to that part. The note was short. Shorter than I expected, considering how many novels she could pour into a single text when we were fighting. It read, Nolan, I know you think I vanished, but the truth is more complicated. What I did, it wasn't about you. I know that sounds like a lie, but it's not. I needed something to break. And you were too solid. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I said I needed space when I really needed permission to implode. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need you to know something. I didn't just leave because of the other man. That ended before I left. I left because of something else. The photo will make sense of it. Or maybe it'll just raise more questions. But it's yours to see. B. My hands were already shaking when I slid the photo out. It was old. Worn around the edges. A print. Not digital. Not modern. It was of B and someone else. Not the guy from the voice memos. This was someone else entirely. A woman. And not just any woman. A woman with the same eyes. Same jawline. Same way of standing like she was never fully comfortable in her own skin. On the back of the photo, in tiny script, it said, She's not my cousin. Her name is Margot. Ask Joyce. That's when something clicked. Margot. That name had come up exactly once. Years ago, when BEA's mom mentioned it at Thanksgiving, and B immediately changed the subject. I had thought it was just an old friend, or someone estranged. I never questioned it. B was full of shadows she called art. But now, I had a name, a face, and a breadcrumb. I didn't sleep after that. I sat in the living room in the dark, the photo on the table in front of me, wondering what the hell it meant. Why would B lie about someone being her cousin? Why hide it? Why leave this, after everything, as the only tangible piece of her apology? And most importantly, Why now? The next day, I called Joyce. She answered on the second ring, her voice tired. Nolan. Hi. Joyce. I said, trying to sound normal. I have a question. It's about B. And Margot. The line went silent. For 5 full seconds, I thought she'd hung up. Then, finally a breath. I was wondering when someone would ask about her, Joyce said, voice low. I suppose she left the photo, didn't she? She did. She's always carried that one. Since she was 15. I waited, letting her speak in her own time. Margot wasn't her cousin. She was her sister. Half-sister, technically. My husband had another family. Before ours. We didn't find out until years later. Margot and B met in secret for a while, after they discovered each other. I told her to stop. I told her it would just hurt her. I blinked. Why would that make B leave? Because, Joyce said, her voice trembling, Margot died. Last year. Car accident. B never told you? No. She blamed me. She said if I hadn't pushed them apart, if I'd let them be close, maybe she wouldn't have been driving alone that night. Maybe she would have had someone to talk to. I sat back, stunned. B didn't just leave me. She was running. From grief. From guilt. From whatever version of herself she thought she couldn't be while standing next to me. And suddenly the timeline made more sense. The withdrawal. The humming. The journal entries disguised as voice memos. She was unraveling. But she didn't want me to see the thread. I hung up with Joyce after a few more quiet words, thanked her, and then just sat there for a long time, holding the photo between my fingers. I should have felt compassion, or sympathy, or something warmer than the ache I carried. But all I could feel was this. She didn't trust me with her pain, not even when it was real. And in the end, that was the worst betrayal of all. For 3 days after the call with Joyce, I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't return texts, didn't check work emails. I left my phone in the kitchen drawer and barely left the house. Not because I was sad, that part had passed. I was calculating, turning over the pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit together. BEA's half-sister, the lie about their relationship, the death, and the cold fact that I'd slept next to her for a year while she buried all of that inside herself like a time bomb. And then I remembered something. A place. It was late fall, maybe 2 years ago, and we were driving through the northern part of the state after visiting some cabin she found on Instagram. We passed a small town, the kind with one gas station and a post office built before color photographs. Out of nowhere, B got tense. Rigid. Like her whole body had remembered something it didn't want to say out loud. I made a joke about how it looked like the kind of place you'd get cursed for stealing apples. She didn't laugh. In fact, she told me something I never really thought about again until now. If I ever die tragically, it'll be in a place like this. The ghosts are louder here. She smiled, but her eyes were fixed on a diner by the road. I asked her if she wanted to stop. She said no. She said, that place has a bad history. Not mine. Someone else's. I'll explain someday. She never did. The town's name was Belridge. I Googled it. Population under 700. Quiet. Poor. Half forgotten by any infrastructure map. But it had a public library. And that library had newspaper archives. I drove there the next morning. It took all of 10 minutes to find what I didn't even know I was looking for. Margot Elliott, 27, killed in a single vehicle accident just outside Belridge. Her obituary listed no surviving immediate family. There was no photo, no drama, just a small, lonely paragraph. What stood out wasn't what was said, but what wasn't. There was no mention of B, no mention of anyone. But next to the obituary was a police blotter. Margot's car had been found on the outskirts of an abandoned summer camp. Off-road. Nighttime. Rainy. Speed wasn't a factor. No sign of brakes. No witnesses. I copied the address. The camp was 27 minutes from where I sat. On the drive there, I tried to convince myself this was closure. That I was doing this to understand B. Maybe forgive her. Maybe not. But the truth was simpler than that. I needed to see the place where her secrets ended. Where the final fracture started. I needed to see the dirt that swallowed the part of her I never got to hold. The road narrowed as I neared it. Then became gravel. Then turned into something barely navigable. Roots cracking through the path. Trees leaning over like they were whispering warnings. And then I found it. The gate was rusted open. The sign still hung, broken, from one chain. Camp Marnie Hollow. The letters peeled from sun and shame. The buildings were shells. Cabins with roofs like torn paper. A mess hall, now a mausoleum of collapsed beams. Nature had started taking it back. Ivy climbed the walls. Bugs owned the windows. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was watchful. I found the spot from the report. A curve near the edge of a steep incline. Trees gnarled along the ridge. A scar in the dirt where a car once lost control. And beside it, almost hidden, a wooden marker. Not official, just two sticks lashed together, sun-bleached and brittle. Someone had come here. Maybe more than once. She never mentioned this place. Never once. And yet here it was, the epicenter of everything she had been burying. I crouched near the marker and brushed away the leaves around it. There was something beneath. A metal tin, rusted shut. I pried it open with a rock. Inside were notes. Dozens of them. Folded scraps of paper. Torn journal entries. Photographs. Some were stained from rain, others still legible. They were all addressed the same way. To Margot. It was her handwriting. Letters B had written to the sister she wasn't allowed to grieve in the daylight. Letters full of guilt, love, resentment, pain. Pages that read like confessionals and curses, sometimes both in the same breath. One of them stood out, dated just weeks before she left me. You told me not to shut down. You said he was worth being honest with. But how can I show him this? He's too solid, too real. If I give this to him, I'll break something I can't fix. And maybe that's what I want. Maybe I want to ruin it before it can reject me. Maybe that's the curse. Yours. Mine. Ours. I sat there for a long time, the letter clutched in my hands, the woods humming around me with the weight of everything I wasn't supposed to know. She hadn't just left me. She sabotaged herself. On purpose. She let the rot grow under the foundation so she could blame the collapse on the architecture, not the termites. I drove home as the sun set, the letters in the passenger seat, the envelope she gave me finally beginning to make sense. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel justified. What I felt was something worse, inevitability. Like all of this had been decided years ago, before I ever met her. Like she'd been dragging a ghost into our bed every night, and I just mistook it for another one of her moods. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but it wasn't. Because the next morning, I got a knock on the door, and standing there was a man I'd never seen before. And he said my name like he'd practiced it, like it meant something to him. He was in his late 30s, maybe early 40s. Wore a tan windbreaker zipped all the way to his neck like it was armor. His shoes were muddy, eyes sharp, but not aggressive, the kind of sharp that says, I've been waiting to say this for a long time. He looked at me the way a locksmith looks at a door they already know how to open. Nolan Eves? He asked. Yes. He exhaled through his nose. Not quite relief, not quite exhaustion. I didn't think you'd be here. She said you might have left. Who are you? I asked. My hands instinctively curled around the edge of the door, unsure if I should close it or brace against it. He glanced past me, into the hallway. My name's Cal. I knew B. A long time ago. Before you. My stomach clenched. I didn't respond. She mentioned you once, he added, like that was supposed to soften something. Mentioned me? He nodded. Back when she was still trying to disappear clean. I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. The air was cold, but I didn't want him inside my house. So what is this then? You show up out of nowhere, start with cryptic nonsense, and expect me to play 20 questions on my own front porch? He smiled, tight and humorless. No, I expect you to listen, because I'm not here for her. I'm here for you. There was a long pause, and then he said, I'm the one who found the body. For a moment, I thought he was referring to B. I felt a sudden jolt of panic, cold sweat on the back of my neck. You mean Margot? I said cautiously. He nodded. Yeah. You were there that night? I followed her out to the camp, he said. She called me before she left. Said she needed to scream into the trees. Said she needed to finally put it all down. Everything about her mom, the secret family, the guilt about B, the years of pretending not to exist. My head spun. Why would she call you? I was her sponsor, he said. AA. You didn't know? No, I didn't. She was sober 5 years when she died, he continued. She relapsed the week before the crash. B doesn't know that part. Or maybe she does and just can't face it. But I was the last person Margot spoke to. I know because I kept the voicemail. He pulled out his phone, showed it to me. Didn't press play. I'm not here to torture you, he said. But I saw your name in her journal. Margot's, not BEA's. She wrote about you once. Called you, the anchor BEA's never going to forgive herself for letting rust. I swallowed hard. I kept it quiet, he said. I didn't contact anyone after the crash. Not B, not her mother. But then I heard, through someone who knew someone, that B left you. Just disappeared. And I started to worry that maybe the grief didn't just bend her, maybe it broke her. In ways none of us saw. I didn't respond. I felt like a wall with too many cracks. She ever tell you about the old phone? He asked. The burner Margot used for just one person? I shook my head. She left it in the tin with the letters, he said. You must have found it. I hadn't. Not yet. He looked at me with a mix of pity and quiet urgency. If you go back, it's buried beneath the box, wrapped in a black cloth. There's only one voicemail on it. From B. My skin buzzed. She didn't just leave you, he said. She cut you out to protect what was left. And maybe she thought silence would be mercy. But silence isn't mercy, Nolan. It's anesthesia, and it wears off. He turned and walked down the steps, leaving me with 1,000 questions. Before he got into his car, he looked back one last time. You deserve the truth. All of it. Just know, it's not the kind you come back from. Then he drove off. I stood there for another 5 minutes, trying to decide if this was real, if any of it was. A man I'd never met showing up like a ghost from a different life, saying things I couldn't verify, hinting at a story no one ever let me read. But deep down, I already knew I would go back. Not because I wanted answers, because I couldn't carry any more questions. So I packed a bag, filled the tank, drove the same broken road back to Camp Marnie Hollow. The sun was just dipping below the tree line when I got there. The ivy was thicker, the air colder, the silence heavier. I went to the marker, dug beneath the box, and sure enough, there it was, a black cloth, stiff from time and rain. Inside, an old flip phone. No battery left, but I brought a portable charger. When it turned on, there was only one saved file. One voicemail, dated 2 months before B left. My hands were trembling when I hit play. And then I heard her voice, not BEA's. Margot's. Nolan, I hope someday you hear this. B would kill me if she knew. But I needed you to know she never stopped loving you. Even when she looked like she did. Even when she didn't know how to show it. She's carrying things she never unpacked. Things you were never meant to see. But that's not your fault. She's going to make a mistake soon. One she'll think is noble. But it isn't. It's fear. And you don't deserve to be punished for someone else's ghosts. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the phone. I just sat there, listening to the final echoes of a woman I'd never met, defending the woman who destroyed me. And in that moment, I realized the one thing I hadn't considered all along. Maybe B hadn't left me to be free. Maybe she left so I could be. I didn't call her right away. I didn't race to write a letter or show up at her door with poetic fury and a box of answers. That's not how endings work in real life. Sometimes they just wait, quietly, on the shelf, until you're ready to stop bleeding and start breathing. But I knew I had to see her. One last time. So I did something uncharacteristically simple. I texted her. Tomorrow. The pier. 5 p.m. No flourish. No explanation. Just coordinates. She replied 10 minutes later. Okay. I drove to the lake the next day. It was the same place we used to go before we got married, when money was tight and date nights were sandwiches and old blankets and the kind of laughter that made you forget time. There was something poetic about ending the story where it once tried to begin. I got there early. Sat on the bench at the end of the pier, wind threading through my sleeves. The water was calm, that mirror still kind of calm, like the lake was holding its breath. She arrived just before 5. Her hair was shorter now. She wore a gray coat with a tear in the left pocket. No makeup, just B, stripped down to her barest version. She walked slowly, like each step was part of a sentence she was still scared to say. When she sat beside me, she didn't speak. Neither did I, for a while. And then, I said, I heard the voicemail. From Margot. She nodded, didn't flinch, didn't ask which one. She wanted me to know you loved me. I continued. Even when you didn't look like it. B stared at the water. I did. God, Nolan. I did. I just didn't know how to love you without falling apart at the same time. You should have let me try to hold that with you. I know. There was no fight left in either of us. Just that quiet, sacred honesty that only comes after the storm has destroyed every illusion you used to hide behind. You thought leaving would protect me, I said. I thought breaking it myself would hurt less than watching it rot, she whispered. But you didn't rot, did you? No, I said softly. I grew around the break. We sat in silence again, and it wasn't heavy this time. It was respectful. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out something small. The photo, the one of her and Margot. She handed it to me. I thought you should keep this, she said. Margot wanted you to understand the part of me I never gave you. She saw more than I did. I looked at it, then back at her. You're not the villain, B. You're just someone who was carrying too much weight without asking for help. She blinked, eyes wet but not broken. That's more grace than I deserve. Maybe, I said, but I'm not giving it for you. I'm giving it for me. She let out a long breath, shaky and human and real. So what now? I stood. I'm moving, I told her. New job, different city. I need to build something that doesn't echo with everything we never said. She stood too, brushing hair out of her face. And this? Us. There's no us, B, I said gently. But that doesn't mean I hate you. I opened my arms, and she stepped into them. We held each other for a long, warm second. Not as lovers, not as enemies. Just two people who once tried really hard to make something beautiful and failed. And that was okay. She walked back up the pier without turning around. I stayed a little longer, then got in my car and drove home. Not to a house full of ghosts. Not to a broken timeline. But to a place I was finally building for myself. A week later, I signed the lease in a quiet little city 2 hours west. The apartment has high ceilings, lots of light, and no memories. Just possibility. Sometimes I still hear her laugh when I'm falling asleep. But I don't chase it. I let it drift away like a boat leaving the dock, small, distant, and finally, free. Just like me.